Greetings dear friends, Dragon here once again. If it's your first time finding my tiny little corner of the YouTubes, then do please consider clicking the red button and subscribing if you enjoy what I do. Here today with a very quick, pretty condensed review of the Goldfinger, recently released at UK cinemas by the wonderful folks over at Cine Asia. And really this is just my attempt to try and implore you to, if you do have a chance to go and see it on the big screen, then you absolutely should do. I think it's a pretty spectacular production that's come out of Hong Kong, the likes of which we haven't seen for quite some time, and a huge budget, which is quite rare for Hong Kong movies. I think it's 350 million Hong Kong dollars, which is extremely rare. I think kind of record breaking for Hong Kong budgets. It's about 35 to 40 million US dollars. And essentially the film really deals with a real series of events. The names have been changed, not so much to protect the innocent, but I think probably so that the film can be released in more territories, and really explores the kind of rapid rise and then fall of the originally called the Carrion Group. In the movie they've retitled it to the Carmen Group, but really started by a businessman, played in this instance by Tony Leung, a rare instance of him playing a villain. The villain's not really particularly how he's playing it. Most good villains always think they're in the right, and he's certainly playing it from a perspective of thinking that he's absolutely entitled to be doing what he is doing, but really arrives in Hong Kong with absolutely nothing. Very quickly is able to make himself $100 by helping out a local kind of businessman who's trying to secure some property. That deal doesn't go so well, but he ends up managing to broker the deal more successfully on his own by kind of gambling it all on his 100 Hong Kong dollars that he has. And we kind of basically see his journey going from this very, very humble start, 100 Hong Kong dollars, about £10 UK, which he's able to turn into about 10 billion Hong Kong dollars over the course of about 3 years. The ICAC, the group that deals with corruption initially in the Hong Kong police and then also in kind of business and in the legal system in Hong Kong, their attempts to really try and bring him to justice. And the principal member of the ICAC that we follow is played by Andy Lau. So it's a reunion really of Felix Chong, the writer and director of the movie, with stars Andy Lau and Tony Leung. And previously they'd worked together 20 odd years ago on Infernal Affairs. And I think for an awful lot of Hong Kong cinema fans, that's really the big draw, is getting to kind of really see Andy Lau and Tony Leung on screen together. They're joined and ably supported by the amazing Simon Lam, who is really more productive and more busy than almost any other actor. Simon Lam seems to make at least 5 or 6 movies every single year and has done for a long, long time. And he's here as an ably supporting character, along with Charlene Choi, who a long-time Hong Kong cinema fans will remember from The Twins Effect, again 20 odd years ago, but who has also had a pretty consistent and fairly successful career both in music and in film. If you're a fan of kind of mainland Chinese TV series, she was on the most recent series of Sisters Who Make Waves, the kind of slight reality performance show where they get musicians and actresses, usually who are all over their 30s and in some cases over their 40s, back together, kind of form them into little groups and have them performing on stage kind of week to week. So she and Jillian Chung, her partner from the band The Twins, were both on that series. So she has been working pretty consistently, though it's the first time that I've seen her doing a big budget movie like this for some time. If you're Jackie Chan fans, you remember her from New Police Story, but again, that's 20 years ago now, but she's been making an awful lot of TV and some other movies in the interim. So really, essentially, we kind of have this story of, like I say, the meteoric rise to power and of success based on very much a house of cards that Tony Leung is constructing, where he's really doing a racket selling shares. And it reminds us all of how much the stock market is really just very similar to the casino world. Really, it's all just gambling, in some ways legal gambling, and flirting the law. And what they're doing in this movie is illegal but masquerading under kind of normal legal business practices. The idea essentially of selling shares in the company, but I think they describe it at one point as for every dollar that he has, he's essentially selling $90 or trying to turn it into $90. And so he's selling an awful lot more shares than the company has value. And rather than buying things in terms of cash, when he's buying new acquisitions and new properties, he's always buying them in shares. So he just keeps on producing more and more shares for the company, manipulating the stock market to increase the value of shares and then periodically dropping the value when it suits him. And that's essentially about as much of the plot as I want to give away. I've seen quite a bit of criticism leveled at the movie for it's the way its narrative structure works, where there's extensive use of flashbacks. I didn't really see it so much as flashbacks. I think that when the ICAC are trying to investigate how he's got his money, each of his various kind of cohorts So we kind of see Simon Yam, and we see Charlene Choi, and we see the incredible Tai-Bo as well. If you're a long-time Hong Kong fan, you'll recognise Tai-Bo here, all giving very different accounts of how Tony Leung's character has managed to kind of achieve his money to really start off the business. And these are all radically different and delivered in very stylized ways. So you kind of see them using different film stocks, and in some cases using quite heavy use of CG to make those little sections of the movie. I've seen a few complaints that the whole of the movie wasn't really examining those sections, but that part of the history of the company, and certainly the history of the chairman, is largely unknown. No one really knows exactly how he was able to kind of achieve the funds that he did do in the early days of starting off. So I think it was pretty appropriate for the film to go down that route, and actually found those sections really effective. Has to be mentioned how amazingly shot the film has been. Cinematography in it is absolutely beautiful. It looks very, very sumptuous. So the production design, the cinematography and the editing, I would all expect to kind of see receiving kind of award nods at the Hong Kong Film Festival Awards in due course, because they're all absolutely exceptional. They've put together a really pretty amazing group of people behind the camera as well as in front of the camera, and performances all round from people, again, in all their department heads are really, really strong. Editing especially, I also kind of have to give a wee nod to, because it's very, very creative in terms of how they've done. There's certain little montage sections, one that reminded me a little bit of what David Fincher did in Zodiac, where they use a kind of CG time lapse to kind of show how much the skyline of the city is changing over time. But there's also kind of some very, very nice little kind of very creative transitions between different scenes that are kind of showing as the company's ascending in how much wealth it's accumulating and how many other areas they're moving into, kind of moving into the shipping industry, into the travel industry and so forth. And you kind of see this in really quite creative ways. But yeah, the set's amazingly lavish. Performance is really good. It's always a treat seeing Andy Lau in a movie. It's always a treat seeing Tony Leung in a movie. It's even more of a treat when we get to see them going head to head. For Western movie fans who may be not that familiar with Hong Kong cinema, it's akin to seeing Al Pacino and Robert De Niro together in Heat, where you're seeing two titans kind of coming together on screen and delivering pretty incredible performances. And great seeing Tony Leung playing a less than noble character. Does it all with a little bit of a smirk and a smile, but still with bags of charisma, and really incredibly well directed by Felix Chong. So I think the movie as a whole is a massive success. I think I'm kind of seeing the Western critics giving it a little bit more of a kick in than I think it deserves. The fan reaction to it has been much more positive. I don't normally kind of go by official critics, and I'm certainly not an official critic. I'm just a fan of Hong Kong cinema and have been for a long, long time. And I think if you are too, you would absolutely benefit from seeing the film on a big screen, because it's really, it's quite a very lavish experience to behold. And hopefully at some point we'll get a physical media release of it. I'm hoping that CineAsia continue their trend of releasing certain movies in 4K, and this would be one that would very much benefit from a 4K release. I'd love it if we kind of got it in a nice presented steelbook in due course, but only the folks at CineAsia know if that is in its future. But yeah, it's really an absolute triumph. They've been knocking it out of the park with some of the releases that have been making it to the UK cinemas. They are quite often ones that you have to seek out. They don't play as heavily nationwide as most American releases do, but certainly The Wandering Earth Part 2 recently got a pretty extensive cinema release in the UK, and now The Goldfinger has as well. So I think you still probably got another couple of weeks to catch it on the big screen. Otherwise, definitely track it down when it comes out in physical media. But 2 thumbs way up from me. I thought the film was absolutely incredible, and I think it's well worth your time. I've been the Fanatical Dragon. Thank you so much for watching this. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.